St. Petersburg.
Okay, even if you don't want to be an X-Man anymore, you can't just stand there while 69 Russian sailors are gasping for air in a submarine, Colossus.
I am sorry, Cyclops, but that is not my problem.
But you don't even need to breathe when you're in metal form, Colossus. Couldn't you at least drop down there and try to get some food or some oxygen to those guys?
Stop trying to trick me into going back to your stupid cult, Marvel Girl. There are experts dealing with that stranded submarine. I saw them on TV during coffee breaks. And even if they fail, surely this is the kind of emergency that the Ultimates were put together for, yes? Iron Man and Captain America are professional superheroes. They can deal with these situations far better than some 19-year-old kid like me.
So what are you saying? That you're just going to spend the rest of your life hiding out here in the middle of nowhere, making $3 a week in a car factory?
As opposed to what? Hiding in a school behind a psychic projection and training to protect a world that will always hate our guts? It is different for you guys. Without the professor to keep Jean's psychic powers under control, she would end up back in that lunatic asylum, yeah? Without those ruby quartz glasses he invented, you would be blasting people every time you opened your eyelid, Cyclops. But my mutant power is so much less complicated than yours. I can keep my organic steel body in check and pass for normal anytime I want to. I do not need his help, so I do not need to put up with those boring lecture tours where he tells the world how clever mutants are. We are not clever. We are dangerous and disgusting. And the only way we can stop children spitting on us in the street like they did back in London is to hide behind human faces.
Don't you think that's a little cynical, Colossus? Isn't the strongest mutant in the world refusing to use his powers like a bird refusing to fly?
No, it's like a skunk that refuses to stink, Marvel Girl. And my name is Rasputin, not Colossus. Peter Nikolaevich Rasputin. Now, for the last time, will you please go away? I am late for supper with my family.
Berlin.
I still can't believe we're chasing the professor's evil mutant son instead of sunning ourselves on this international book tour we were promised.
Tell me about it, Storm. If I'd wanted to waste my time looking for fights with certifiable nutcases, I could have stayed in regular high school.
Excuse me, Iceman, but David happens to be my son too, and as you very well know, suffers from a very serious medical condition.
Oh, sure. The kind of condition which makes him jump from body to body and kill as many folks as he can, right? Pardon me if I don't send flowers, Dr. McTaggart.
Still, you gotta admit it's pretty cool getting a military escort straight through the airport, Wolverine. Likewise, S.H.I.E.L.D. sending this new super team to help us out. The X-Men teaming up with the Ultimates? Man, how spectacular is this going to be? The only thing I don't understand is how this psychic secret agent chick can track this creep and Xavier can't.
Because he's been inside the professor's head and designed a way of blocking him, Iceman. The lovely Miss Braddock over there is still an unknown quantity.
Not for much longer by the looks of it. Betsy seems to be getting on pretty well with the boss, if you catch my drift.
Oh, psychics are always like that when they get together, Miss Monroe. It's actually a bit creepy watching them having those silent conversations. Like watching people doing sign language without moving their hands, you know.
Either that or she's got the hots for him, Inspector Thomas.
Oh, dear God, no. It's only just occurred to me why David's lured everyone here to Germany. This is where Glasgow Rangers drew with Borussia Dortmund in the European Cup back in 1995. Dear God in heaven, this is where Charlie, David and I had our last family holiday.
I must admit I'm a little surprised how shaken up Wolverine's been by all this, Professor. You always imagined someone with his reputation wouldn't be fazed by anything.
Well, Wolverine is a feral beast, Betsy. He relies entirely on his senses, and for the first time in his life, he's up against an opponent where his abilities are essentially useless. Tracking my son has been harrowing for everyone, but I'm confident that we'll capture and rehabilitate him soon. Especially with all this superhero backup you've arranged for us.
What do you mean, rehabilitate him? You aren't planning to enlist this animal in your school, are you?
David spent 7 of the last 19 years tied to a hospital bed, Betsy. He's probably the most powerful mutant in the world, and he hasn't a clue how to use his powers. Show me someone who needs a little education more than he does, and I'll be very, very surprised, young lady.
You know, you're probably just about the strangest person I've ever met, but I'm really starting to warm to you, Professor.
Does it feel a bit weird being here with your ex-wife like this?
Not at all, actually. Moira McTaggart and I always had a very complicated relationship.
Somehow, I just can't imagine you two being married.
Well, you'd be surprised. The two of us were very much in love for a great many years. When we met, I was doing a postgraduate course in genetics at Glasgow University and got married 3 weeks later. Of course, mutants were still just a rumor in those days, but I knew what I was, and together with Moira, we pretty much wrote the book on post-human medicine. It was Moira who designed and built the big Cerebro prototype you saw up on your island, and we used this to track down any potential patients who might need our help. Boys made of steam, dogs made of ice cream. We tried to save them all through the 1980s. As you can imagine, it wasn't long before we attracted the attention of another forward-thinking individual with an interest in mutant teenagers too.
Magneto?
The very fellow. I don't know about you, but the first time I met another adult mutant was like being hit by a thunderbolt. Far, far more powerful than being in love, and our human wives knew it. Our eyes were brighter. Our minds were faster. Sometimes we could spend 72 straight hours on the telephone just talking about our ideas for the world. Even poor little David felt alienated when Magneto's twins would visit. This being, of course, several years before David's own mutant gene was activated. I honestly don't think there was one specific argument which caused me to leave. Just the drip, drip, drip of silent nights in front of the television set, and the growing unease with my own child's scent. It's monstrous in hindsight, but I don't even think I said goodbye the night I left to build our little South Sea Island utopia. But as everyone knows, Magneto and I had the most terrible argument when I discovered his plans, which left me crippled and confined to this wheelchair. So when my investors approached and offered to fund my secret New York school and this second home for less fortunate mutants, my thoughts drifted back to Moira.
You mean you hired her to assuage your guilt for walking out on your family a few years before?
Partially, but also because she's literally the best gene woman in the business, and because I wanted to make sure that my chronically ill son had a comfortable home.
Do you ever feel responsible for David? I mean, the fact that his reality-warping powers kicked in the day after you left?
Not really. They were going to happen anyway, of course. What I do feel guilty about was not being there to guide him at an age when I think he needed me most. I had no shortage of love for my son, you know. Like an owner's love for his pet sometimes, but it was love nonetheless, Betsy.
That was Russian intelligence just on the phone. Apparently they can't get their subs anywhere near the vessel, and it's all down to Iron Man now.
Supposing he can't reach them either, Peter. What if that armor he created can't handle those kind of depths?
You have read the articles as well as I have, Jean. Tony Stark developed that armor to handle everything from the Marianas Trench to the surface of the moon. He'll reach them.
You know, I really don't understand you, Peter. How can you just sit there and eat your soup when there are people out there who need help, man? Professor X got you out of the Russian mafia, for God's sake. Don't you think you should maybe be giving the guy a hand to find his missing son or something?
No. I think I have more than paid my dues now to that mad fool. I am not interested in any more of his crazy missions.
You think the professor's mad?
Well, what else would you call a man shielding a monster who has killed over 1,000 human beings, Jean? If you really think someone like Magneto can be rehabilitated with anything short of a bullet, then perhaps Xavier has brainwashed you guys too, eh? I just want to be with my family again. What's wrong with wanting a normal life like everybody else?
Because you're not like everybody else, Peter. These people are great, but you haven't been here since you were like 12 or something. What could you possibly have in common with them?
He's right, Peter. Even your Russian's a little rusty. You've got to face the fact that the Xmen are your family now.
Are you kidding? You people don't even know me. That is one of the reasons I quit the school. The 2 terms I spent in the Xmen were the loneliest of my life. Nobody helped me in fights. Nobody included me in the recreation stuff. You guys hardly even spoke to me. I mean, can either of you name a television show I watch?
Sure I can. Will and Grace. It's your favorite program, Peter.
Someone besides the school telepath, please.
Okay, so maybe we need to spend a little more quality time with each other in the future. That's no big deal.
No, you need to get it through your skull that I am sick and tired of this trainee superhero garbage, Cyclops. I want a normal life, man.
Don't you mean you want the person on the team you love so much to maybe love you back a little, Peter?
Get out of my head and get out of my house, Marvel Girl. I have nothing left to say to either of you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Global News. Time seems to be running out for the sailors trapped in the downed K-14 submarine in the Barents Sea. Where are these so-called heroes in our hour of need? It appears hopes of Iron Man's assistance have been dashed, as Tony Stark seems to be occupied elsewhere. Our hearts go out to the families of these brave sailors who don't know if their sons will ever be coming home again.
The Barents Sea.
Okay, Tony Stark might be stuck up in space right now, but you're going to have British, German, and French divers backing you up all the way down there, mate. If there's a problem and you really don't reckon you can dislodge the K-14, just give us a signal and we'll have you out of there in a jiffy, right?
There will not be a problem, Colonel. After all, if Colossus cannot do this, who can?
This is the BBC World Service with George Alagaya in the news headlines every 15 minutes. Progress in Russia as the K-14 submarine is saved from disaster. Details are sketchy at the moment, but 2 hours ago the Russian news agency TASS recommended that all foreign news crews head to Murmansk for further developments.
How the heck should I know what it is? All I know is I'm not going there without a photographer, dude. Just finish your beer and move. Oh, for the love of God! Is this a front page or is this a front page?
Boys, boy.
Well, how does it feel to suddenly find yourself the most famous superhero on the face of the planet, Colossus?
In all honesty, absolutely fabulous.
Did Moira go to pick up Colossus with the others, Professor?
No, she said she was heading back to the hotel to lie down, Betsy. She hasn't really been herself since that hip operation. The students are excited about Peter coming back. I think they've realized how much they left him out of things over the past year, to be honest. That's why they're making such a big deal about everybody meeting him from the plane.
That's really sweet, isn't it? I expect you'll be pleased to have your whole class back together again too, huh?
Oh, yes. And you, I suppose. Since it gives you a chance to exact this revenge you've been planning. That is what you've been waiting for, isn't it, David?
When did you figure out it was me in here, Dad?
Back in the restaurant, during dinner. Your appreciation of the waitress bending over was my first indication. But the well-bred Betsy Braddock ordering 3 portions of ketchup and fries was the clincher. When did you make the jump?
Back home in Scotland, believe it or not. Betsy was the first on the scene when I crashed that big truck off that bridge, remember?
Oh, of course. I take it Inspector Thomas is dead?
As the dodo, Dad.
And the Ultimates?
Never even called them. Likewise, that big SHIELD backup team who was supposed to have been coming to lend a hand. So, don't expect any last-minute rescues or anything like that.
Flying us halfway around the world, disconnecting us from our support networks, hiding behind the mind of an A-list telepath? You've certainly created an excellent trap here, David. How did you stop Betsy's physical form from disintegrating?
Just getting a little better with these powers every day, I suppose.
So what happens now? The inevitable fight to the death?
No, first I'm going to finish this big packet of peanut M&Ms. Do you know how much I missed these when I was in the hospital? Man, I was practically dreaming about them. But after that, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you and all these wee X-Men you left for us, and then I'm going to trash everything you ever built, Dad. I'm going to make you wish you'd never been born.
I'll stop you, you know. I don't care about your reality warping powers. I don't care about the fact that you found a way to block me from your thoughts. I'll still find a way to stop you, David.
We'll see.